One of the worst experiences that we had during the 20th century was taking on Nazism. Adolf Hitler took some lovely symbols and destroyed them for us. One was the swastika, which was started out as the cross and was used by the Indians as a peace sign. Obviously he turned it to the side and became the swastika, the ugly swastika, the Nazis, representing murder and anti-Semitism and so on. Another one that was destroyed was in some ways, was the salute to the flag here in the United States, which was originally done like this, which looked too much like the German Sieg Heil, which was like this. So during the Second World War, that was dropped, and it was told to the school children of America in reciting the pledge that they put their hand over their heart. And that's the way it's been done ever since. He did give us the Volkswagen, but again, that started out as the people's car, which is what it means. Some of the real ugly things, though, had to do with the systematic killing of Jews, which Hitler himself was an Austrian, and in the Pool Hall Putsch of 1825, he was arrested along with a number of other people. And during the time he was in prison, he wrote the first volume of his struggle, which we know as Mein Kompf. This is the first issue of that, and it's one of only 500 copies that he signed. In fact, there's his signature. This is number 64. I've not seen another copy of this first printing anywhere since I picked this up many years ago. But it's a rare book. It should be rare. And in it, he talks about how he labels international Jewism as being, the problem with Germany not pulling out of after World War I and so on. And he tells you systematically, what he's going to do if he ever gets in power. It's too bad that it seems like only Winston Churchill ever got around to reading his book early on. But I'm glad at least one of the great leaders did. And Churchill was an instant enemy of Adolf Hitler's long before he started invading Poland in 1939. Just a couple of the Jews were required eventually to wear a star on their clothing, which labeled them as a Star of David. When they were sent to the death camps, they wore armbands like these. Each one of the colors represented something else. This is a political prisoners here. The pink ones represented homosexuals. There were others. Here's another example of a star that Jews had to put on their clothing. After Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, where all the synagogues basically were destroyed in Poland and Germany and so on. Then it came out in the open as to what was going on. One of the more touching things, I have letters from Dachau and so on, but one of the more touching things I have is this drawing by a child at Auschwitz of her family being taken away. This child didn't survive, incidentally, but her drawing did, and it's quite touching. A couple of the important items that come from this era. When he was 15, Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister, wrote poetry. No real indication of the ghastly position he would take later as the propaganda chief in the Nazi government. And he actually, there are some love letters here that survived between him and Ilse Janke. When he joined the socialist movement in the early 1920s, he was going to marry Ilse. Mostly they're her letters that were saved. There's some of his in here too. Until he found that her mother was half Jewish. And then he dropped her immediately. And he said that he was disgusted, was the word he used, to learn that her heritage included Jewish heritage. some of the ugliest stuff in world history was what we were fighting against in that war. This is an interesting piece because it's the last report from Albert Speer to the Fuhrer. It's his original report saying that their arms are about exhausted. This is 2 months before the Battle of the Bulge. And but he can rearm the nation, he felt, and that's his report. And finally, it was the Jews that were able to secrete and take away Adolf Eichmann from South America after the war. And I remember as a youth, his trial was on the old black and white TV in 1960. Yeah, it was held in Jerusalem, and he was convicted of crimes against humanity and was hung, executed. This is his actual commentary on his death sentence. I think it's the first time this has been shown. And let me quote just one little part of it. He said, "I heard the verdict last week, guilty. I know the sentence already, death. And for this, my fate, I feel nothing, nothing at all. I confess a moral guilt. I was a part of the inferno. But I will never confess to being more than a loyal obeyer of orders in a state where all values had been reversed. It was the great ones, Hitler, Himmler, Heydrich, who turned their backs on the crying of the people." It's always somebody else, right? Even though he carried out their orders. "No, I do not want a clergyman. They cannot send me to hell because I am in hell. I'm longing to be dead, the quicker the better." That's a quote from his reaction to his death sentence. Many American soldiers lost their lives fighting against this tyranny. My father-in-law, my wife's father, was in the second wave at D-Day, of which we celebrate the 70th anniversary this year. And many of his close friends were lost in that effort to stamp out an evil that looked like it was going to take over the world. And yes, they are the greatest generation for doing it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel now for new stories to come, and feel free to share the link with others.